No, it wasn't. It was about political correctness. But again, it's all part of the smearing process. We're trying to have a conversation, and your friend in the studio here is still full of outrage, an angry young man wound up and full of left-wing zeal.
Well, I hope you're all clear and across all the meanings of those terms. Thanks to Radio 4 newsreader, consummate professional Kathy Clugston, for voicing that for us. I'm joined now by Michael Segalov from Huck magazine, and from Brussels by the MEP and UKIP member Bill Etheridge. Welcome to both of you. Michael Segalov, are these terms offensive?
Well, no, they're not. These are phrases used online by people, you know, making light humour from the real serious issues we see, like discussed on the internet. Listen, we all know that the real bigotry and racism we see online is the racism, the sexism, the homophobia that permeates our society. We're making fun of people who get angry about the same-sex marriage and Brexit when they shout at question time from their privileged middle-class positions. That's not something to be talking about on national television. Really.
Right, well, that's you, Bill Etheridge. Are you offended? The former spokesperson for Jeremy Corbyn, Matt Zarb-Cousins, said being a gammon is a condition that once manifested itself as an affinity to UKIP, but now more so to high blood pressure and a red meat complexion. Is that you?
I think it sounds a lot like me, doesn't it? I'm far from offended. I think it's a particularly silly and childish way of having a go at people on the internet. And believe me, I've had a lot worse. Many of the things I've been called, you wouldn't have on your esteemed programme. So it doesn't worry me in the least. I think the gammon thing is perhaps gives an insight into the mindset of these people who perhaps think that a white working class male who's slightly balding in their late 40s is not as valid as anyone else. But hey, look, if they want to call us names and say these kind of things, that's fine. I've called them a few back in my time as well, so it's all part of the rough and tumble, and I won't lose any sleep over it.
Right, I mean, it's just childish. I mean, what's the point of it? Does it really help the sort of Corbyn cause?
Well, no, and it's not an official party. And I was interested watching the VT you just ran, because I didn't know what half those words meant. It does sort of feel today there are people from parts of the media are looking to have this conversation about these words, when in fact most young people involved in the Corbyn project are really busy knocking on doors trying to encourage a socialist government. I think just to pick up on the class thing, because there is a distinction here. I've been doing my research about the word gammon, and it's specifically a thing.
Did it take a long time?
It took me a while to work it out, but I'm getting there.
OK.
In fact, when I got the phone call today, I did think I was being asked to come and speak about Gaza, not gammon, and the mass...
Well, thank goodness we cleared that up, because you missed that at the beginning, yes.
But what I think is important to note is that it's talking about class. I have looked into it, and the idea here is it's middle class, golf club membered men who are... That's the idea. Now, how that's being interpreted...
But it is derogatory, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's not a term of endearment, I would say, but I mean, that's kind of different to the serious issues of racism and sexism, Islamophobia, homophobia that permeate our society and permeate online too.
And Bill Etheridge, as you said yourself, you've used a few abusive terms yourself. I mean, there's been far more, hasn't there? Mud being slung at people on the left, even calling them hard left. I mean, all of that is a term of abuse.
I think both sides have got to the point now where, certainly in the last few years, the political discourse has got so heated and the difference is so huge that actually it's gone past the point of it being banter and laughable. It's just now we're at a point where we're so entrenched on both sides. It might be an idea, and perhaps this is something I shall have to take on board myself as well, that we maybe to tone it down a bit and actually try to discuss things with each other, because it doesn't gain anyone anything for someone to shout, call me a slug or gammon or whatever, and me to call them a pinko and a commie. Nobody cares. It's silly. So perhaps what we need to start doing now is actually trying to have a debate that people might be interested in, because there's a lot of serious stuff to talk about rather than having a bit of fun throwing mud at each other, which is pretty childish and no one's excited by it.
Polly, is it funny? I mean, is it funny to call someone gammon?
I don't think it's even slightly funny. I don't think it's funny to call people a snowflake, or, as Bill was saying, in a real moment of clarity and sense. Thank you, Bill. We just have to bring to an end this age of outrage, this way of relating to each other. At Demos, we've got this optimism project to try and find a way to bring about a different way of doing our politics and bring people together.
Right, I mean, then haven't people on the left just indulged themselves in something that actually, as we've heard from our other guests, is just silly, is childish, and actually it's not going to help?
No, but that's the choice of the media what to talk about. Listen, we're having a debate with a man who was forced to resign from the Conservative Party after posing with a gollywog, and I was looking online today on what the Daily Mail reported, the Mail on Sunday, was saying about things he said about Hitler to UKIP youth. I mean, these are the serious questions we're having. And I think that it's that the media decide to have these conversations that play up the left, who are the people fighting against racism, bigotry and prejudice. That's up to them, but that's not the issue.
Well, that is racist, isn't it, Bill? I mean, posing with a gollywog.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was about political correctness. But again, it's all part of the smearing process. We're trying to have a conversation, and the old friend in the studio here is still full of outrage, an angry young man wound up and full of left-wing zeal.
Angry
it's great,
at men
but try and
posing
make an
gollywogs and
argument,
then
mate.
going to the European Parliament to represent this country. Yeah, I think that's an outrage.
But everybody's
elected,
angry,
chap.
right? We actually can't go on as a country like this, being so angry with each other. It is just the pathway to devastation and resentment and division. And I just think we need to find a way to have a conversation in a civilised way and force ourselves to come to a different kind of consensus.
Right, well, I'm not angry at this point, and I'm going to settle this discussion at the moment. No more abuse, no more angry terms being slung about. Thank you very much for joining me, particularly to you, Polly, for being the guest of the day.
Big Man Tyrone here. Make sure to subscribe to the wicked, awesome Robin Hood UKIP YouTube website. He exposes the leftist crops on the British Brainwashing Corporation. Nice.